So hi Jill, and hello Alan and Helen. Hi Elizabeth, hi Patricia, hi Timmy and Matthew, hi Laura. Lots of people joining now. We'll just give it one more minute. Hopefully you're enjoying. Hopefully you can see the beavers. And we'll get started very soon. Hello Sam, hi Louise, hi Melody. I can see Laura, you've got a good question there about where the beavers will come from. So we're going to do some live questions later. Hold on to that thought, and hopefully you'll get the opportunity to ask that. Hi from Zippy. Okay, I think we're 2 minutes over, so I think we'll make a start. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop sharing our wonderful beaver videos and introduce you to your hosts. George and Kate will be talking today. Let's just check that we can bring them in. Oh, well, this is first technical glitch of the day. So, George and Kate, are you with us?
Hi, Ben.
Great. Hi, George.
I'm here.
Good.
Hello.
Fabulous. So yeah, well, without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to George and Kate, who are going to be taking your questions and talking us through the reintroduction of beavers to Derbyshire. So over to you, Kate.
Thank you very much. Yeah, my name is Kate Lemon. I work for Derbyshire Wildlife Trust, and I'm the regional manager for the Trent and Erewash valleys. And I'm going to be asking George Bird, our living landscape officer for the Trent Valley, some questions about beavers today. So George, beavers, gosh, we've seen the video. It's really exciting. We're going to reintroduce beavers to Derbyshire for the first time in 600 years. Where have they been all this time? Where did they go?
So beavers were actually hunted to extinction. They were recognised as vermin. They were hunted for their meat, their fur, and their castoreum, which is actually an oily secretion. So that was used in medieval times as a treatment for headaches. And actually, the Catholic Church decided that beavers were actually fish because of their big wide tail and their aquatic lifestyle. So during Lent, they're actually allowed to eat them on Friday.
Wow, okay. So we're thinking about bringing beavers back to Derbyshire. Have they already been introduced elsewhere in the UK?
Yes, there have been many successful reintroductions in the UK. Some captive reintroductions. We've got Spain's Hall in Essex. If you'd like to follow them, they do great social media updates showing you what the beavers have been up to, where they've been damming, and how this has affected the water flow. Forest of Dean have got a reintroductions programme. And there's also in Devon a wild study on the River Otter. So what they've done is a 5-year study on the impacts of beavers, which has now been extended. And so far it's showing great results.
Fantastic. So we've decided that we're going to use our Willington Wetlands Nature Reserve to release the beavers. Why are we using Willington when we've got 47 nature reserves in total, but why Willington, and what's the background of that site?
Yep, so Willington is a perfect area for beavers. The leading beaver expert ecologist, Derek Gow, came to do a couple of site visits, and he was very excited about the habitat we've got here. So we have plenty of food for them, such as reeds, brambles, loads of willow, so there's plenty of bark for them to feed on. It's fairly out of the way of any farmland. It's a really accessible site, but really the mixture of habitats are ideal for beavers. They've got everything they can actually need there. They've got open water, they've got rivers, plentiful supplies of food. And the Willington Wetlands is a 40 hectares reserve, which is made up of restored gravel workings within the Trent Valley. We purchased it in 2005, and before this, it was an operational quarry for over 20 years. And now we manage a reserve for wildlife, and it's a wonderful wildlife hotspot in South Derbyshire.
Wow, sounds fantastic. Why do we want beavers back?
So all management that we do on reserve is to mimic natural processes. One of these things we do is we coppice willow from the reed beds and along the open water edges. We spend a lot of staff and volunteer time doing this. So not next best thing, the best thing to do is to bring the beavers back, and they can do it for us. We graze the reserve with sheep and cattle, so really bringing beavers in is no different to that. They'll just be another key management tool for us. And they do everything that we could do, but just so much better.
Great, they sound good. Why has this particular habitat been chosen for beavers? What makes it so perfect for them?
So we've got a wide variety of habitats from open water. We've got streams running through the reserve, plenty of woodland, loads of food in the form of reeds, really sugary in the spring, so they love to have a nibble on that. We've plentiful supply of willow for the winter, loads of bark for them to feed on. And like I said earlier, it's away from farmland, it's away from people, it's a perfect area. And the way it lies, it's low enough that any impacts of beavers won't be felt elsewhere, it will just be on the reserve.
Great. What are they going to do for the local wildlife there then?
Well, they are described as being keystone species, and what this means is that the way they manage the land has a massive knock-on effect on all of the wildlife in the area. So everything that they do supports wildlife. So by creating dams, there's been studies showing that dragonflies return to the area because they actually use these dams as refuge. The pools created before the dams, they'll be great because they'll have refuge for fish, and in turn the fish will bring in bigger birds like herons, kingfishers to feed on the fish in the pools. Just everything they do is just amazing, and it has such a knock-on effect on all the wildlife in the area.
It sounds like they're going to be great for local wildlife in lots of different ways. Are there any negative impacts that they could have on the local wildlife?
Pretty much nothing really. There's no real impacts, which is easy to say because that's what we want beavers, but studies are showing that they're perfect for the area. They improve the local wildlife so much, but they're also herbivores, so essentially they're vegetarian, so they will not take any fish, any birds, any eggs. They'll just take vegetation, so they shouldn't have any effect on anything at all really.
Great, might help us control some of that willow that we struggle with there. We know that beavers are being used as a tool for natural floodplain management, and we certainly need more tools in the box given the weather conditions we're having and climate change. What are we hoping that the effects on flooding are going to be by using beavers?
So realistically, the impacts on Willington and the surrounding area are very minimal. By the time the water's at Willington, it's really too late to have any impacts at Willington on the surrounding area. So any impacts will be felt directly on the reserve. So what the beaver dams should do is hold water on the reserve for longer. It will spread it out, make the areas wetter. And then this will mean that during the summer months, when it's a bit drier, we've still got a plentiful supply of water going down the brooks. So although we won't see any impacts on the local area, directly on the reserve, we should see some changes.
Okay, great. So it's going to help hold flood water as well on the reserve more as well.
On the reserve, yeah.
Yeah, great. How big is the nature reserve, and how big is the area that we are fencing for beavers? Why do we need to fence the beavers in?
So as you can hopefully see now on the screen, we've got our plans for Willington Wetlands. Our whole reserve currently is 46 hectares. We're not using this whole area for the beavers at the moment, so the area that they'll have is 20 hectares. Originally it was only going to be 8, but we've decided to make it a little bit larger, so this will be even better for the beavers. So currently the beavers aren't actually classed as being a native species, so therefore Natural England requires us to have fencing in place before we can actually release the beavers. But hopefully one day, within 5 years, hopefully they'll be recognised as a native species and we'll be able to release them again.
Wow, fantastic. We can see from this picture that there's lots of other things going on there at Willington. Tell us a bit more about the plans that we've got for Willington in the future. So
we really want to connect the local community back to the landscape again. For this, we'd like to create a 5-mile circular route. So again, if you look at the map, if you look on the sort of the southern border of Willington Wetlands, you can see the dotted line. That's going to be the start of the circular route. So it's going to run along the outside of our reserve. And then we're going to cross the Eglinton Brook via a brand new bridge. This will then take you onto Cemex's land. Through here, where they've been restoring the area after ground extraction, it looks amazing at the moment. It's going to look even better in a few years' time. This will then take you along the Trent and Mersey Canal, back into Willington and then back to the reserve. We'd also like to get more people on the reserve, not just going around it. So we're going to hopefully build a brand new visitor centre. This will be great for learning about the local environment, the local area. And then within the beaver zone, we would like to have some viewing platforms of the key spots where the beavers are most active.
Brilliant. Sounds really exciting. So whereabouts are these beavers coming from, George?
So we will be getting the beavers from Tayside up in Scotland. There is a really good population there at the moment. And as part of management for them, we'll be capturing up there and bringing them down to Willington.
Good question there from Deirdre on the chat. I was just going to ask that. How many beavers are we getting?
So what we're going to have is one family. Ideally, this will be 2 adults, so breeding adults, and then two young. But realistically, it's going to be whatever we get. But no matter what we have, it will be one pair and hopefully their offspring.
Wow, I'm really excited about this, George. It just feels like such an amazing thing to be part of. What can I do for beavers right now?
So at the moment, we've got a really successful crowdfunder on. So by donating to our campaign, you can help us to complete phase 1 of our project, and that's going to be the beaver fencing and bringing beavers back to Willington. I think Danielle is going to put the link in the chat so you can all have a look at it. And I'm really excited to say they're actually really close to our target now. So if we get to our target, we can go ahead with the project. An alternative as well, I think Ben might have a picture, hopefully. Well, anyway, we'll see in a bit. You can buy an Adopt a Beaver pack. So in this, you'll get a beaver soft toy, keyring, and lots of information on beavers and much more in there. There we go, on the screen now for you. So yes, you can buy this adoption pack, and that will really help us to get to our target.
Fantastic. So we've had some questions that have been submitted before. We'll be going to the live chat questions soon. So anybody watching this, anything that's come up so far that you want an answer on, please start putting your questions up. We will be going through those. Just quickly, a few questions we've already had in. Jackie and Alistair Blackett have asked, where else would be good and environmentally useful to have beavers in Derbyshire?
Well, anywhere along the watercourse, really. So we're kind of at the bottom of our catchment, of our river catchment onto the Trent. So like I said earlier, our impact what we'll actually have will be a lot more minimal than anywhere else. So what we'd like to do is go further up the rivers, up to the top, and reintroduce beavers there and have them all along the river. And then what they can do is they can dam the water, hold the water back for longer, and help to mitigate any flooding. Okay, brilliant. Tim Mellors asked a good question, saying it's been a few hundred years since beavers were last seen in the wild here, 600 actually. What are going to be the challenges then in confining and maintaining them in a relatively small area that's surrounded by intensively used urban and agricultural land? Yeah, another good question. So it does really depend on what you refer to as relatively small. Originally, we were going to have 8 hectares, and when we met with Derek Gow, the leading consultant for beavers in the UK, he was really excited about the area. He said it'd be perfect for a family, plenty big enough, plenty of food resources for them. So now at 20, it's even bigger. So it's just the perfect area. We're going to be checking the fences at least twice a week, so there'll be no escapees. And studies from places like Bavaria showing that beavers can live side by side with farmers. The farmers have volunteer beaver experts that come out and help them with the management of the land. If the ditch that doesn't need damming, they can take the dams down. And also, there's not evidence, there are beavers in urban areas living in canals, right through city centres, living side by side with people. Yeah, that's a good point to make, isn't it, George? That actually, you know, wildlife and people can live alongside each other very happily and without having negative impacts on each other at all. Oh, here we go. David Howson wanted to know, do beavers engage in tunnelling? Good question. And if so, what precautions are we going to take to prevent them from escaping? Okay, yeah. So beavers do tunnel. They create lodges to live in. This can be surrounded by water, or they can do it into banks. And to do it into banks, obviously they need to burrow. So what we've done is we've walked the whole site where the fence line is going to go, and then we've identified areas of potential burrowing. So this is anywhere that's less than 20 metres from a water source or water course. And so to counteract this, what you can do, you can mesh fence the banks of where your key areas where they're going to start digging, and that prevent them from tunnelling. Wow, brilliant. Thank you, George. We've had loads of really great questions coming in on the live chat, so I'm going to hand over back to Ben, who's going to handle those. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kate, and thank you very much, George. So what we're going to try and do now is bring some people in to ask their questions live. I know lots of you have been dropping them into the chat, and that's really, really cool, and we might try and get back and pick some of those up. But actually, what you'll find on your screen as well is a little box that's marked Q and A. So if you go to the box that's marked Q and A, and type your questions in there, and we'll just go through and try and find some that are, similar, and ask the questions that are coming up most often. So I've selected a couple already. What I'm going to try and do is actually get the person that has asked the question to ask it of George, so we can get your voice up on screen. So the first of those I've selected is from somebody who has come through as 44743 with a question. So we're not sure who you are, but I'm going to bring you in now, and let's see if we can get your question asked of George.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I was just wondering what changes you think would need to be made across the country in order to prepare for the reinstatement of this species to British rivers. So I know that a lot of them are in a poor ecological state, and I know a lot of them, come into contact with agricultural land, into urban areas, built-up areas, artificial rivers. What changes do you think we need to make now? Because obviously we've got them in Scotland, and I personally think it's only a matter of time before they eventually naturally migrate to British rivers. And we are trying to restate them across the country, but what changes can we make now that will benefit the species and reduce the amount of human-wildlife conflicts?
Yeah, so a big thing in the there is, well, what we need to do here is to get more evidence of the need for beavers and how they can work side by side with landowners in urban areas. In Bavaria is a super, like I said earlier, we've got these volunteers that go out to advise landowners. So I think at the moment, there's a lot of people doing talks to like NFU, to landowners, to explain how you can manage for beavers once they're there, because a lot of people are concerned about the negative impacts they can have. They can bore into banks, but this can be stopped. They can dam ditches, but this can be sorted as well. So I think in England, it's kind of the perception of what beavers do. So all these reintroduction projects and releases, it's adding to the evidence of how they can be positive, but how we can work alongside them to sort that out. In regards to like the ecological status of the rivers, all the studies have shown how they help to settle out sediment, they help to reduce nutrient loads behind the dams. So I don't think you're going to have to do much to rivers. I can't say this personally, like Derek Gow's going to be the guy who can tell you exactly what we need to do. But personally, I think to get the rivers back into a good state, we need to bring these natural managers back in, the beavers, the beavers are the animals that do this management for us and stop us having to do it ourselves. And I spoke to Derek, and Derek said he's had really, really positive chats with farmers, and I think they are becoming more receptive of beavers and what they can actually do, and how they can benefit the area. Does that sort of answer the question?
That's great. Thank you very much, George. We're going to go over to Nikki Loveday, who's got a question about or how long the beavers have to remain in enclosure. So, Nikki, I'm going to bring you in, and hopefully we can hear from you now. Oh, something's going wrong here. Let's try that one more time.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. What steps do we need to achieve to get the beavers declared as native species and then allowed to roam freely?
Yeah, it's all evidence really. So because we have, well, Scotland's great, Devon's great. There's not a lot in England to show the benefits they can have. So the Devon project is a 5-year project to show how beavers manage the landscape and how they can work side by side with the landowners. So I think we need more and more reintroduction programs to highlight the positives that can have, how we can work with landowners to mitigate any negative impacts they can have. So that's being evidence really, and we're hoping within 5 years, Natural England will give them back, will give beavers a native status again.
You mentioned negative impacts for landowners.
Yeah.
What do you think they might be?
So it's things like damming ditches, and that can be overcome within a day. You just go down, take the dams out. You get beaver volunteers to do that, and bore into banks, which we spoke about earlier, meshing the banks so they can't bore into there. That's mainly the negatives, and also flooding the land But again, this is really easy to fix. There's a thing called a beaver deceiver, essentially a big pipe that goes from one side of dam to the other, and it allows the water levels to drop without the beavers realising what's going on. So everything can be mitigated.
Right, thanks very much, George.
All right.
Great, thank you very much, Nikki. So we're now going to go across to Tanya, who has got a question about otters, I believe. Let's see if we can get Tanya.
Is that better?
That is great, we can hear you. Yes, please go ahead.
Is there any conflict between otters and beavers?
So beavers are really laid back. They don't have much trouble with anything else. The only thing that can happen is there is anecdotal evidence of otters taking the young out of so when the young beavers come out of the lodges for the first time, they are small enough for otters to take, and that's the only real conflicts that they can have.
So it's not likely to impede the otter productions.
It should.
Because obviously they're doing quite well at the moment, aren't they? They're re-emerging.
It should increase it. So if you think about the dams creating habitat for fish, there'll be more fish about in these pools. There'll be feeding areas and hunting grounds for otter. So as I said earlier, they're a keystone species. They pretty much benefit everything. So if anything, well, it's been shown that otters do return to areas such as the River Otter. If you have a look at the River Otter project, you can see there just how much of an impact it's had on the otters. Sorry.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Tanya. So now we're going to go across to Holly. Holly, you have a question for George, I believe.
I'd like to ask, are beavers friendly?
That's a really good question. So beavers, people that photograph beavers and handle beavers have said how friendly they are, but obviously they have really big front teeth, so you don't want to get near them. But they're very laid back, very friendly, and you can get some really good views of them if you're nice and quiet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have another question, and this question is from Elliot in Hertfordshire.
Have you got names for them?
That's a great question.
Sorry, I didn't catch that one. What was that, Ben? Sorry.
Have they got names?
Not yet, no. So I don't know what Ben thinks, but we could potentially have a naming contest when we release them. So what we have to do when we put them in, we have to tag them all. So that means we can identify them because they all look very similar. So when we tag them, we can name them. And I'm sure Ben could sort something out for that.
I think that sounds like a great idea. Elliot, would you like to take part in a naming competition if we have one?
Yes, please.
Okay, let's make that happen. Thank you very much. A really good question. So we're going to go across now to Joe Walker. So bear with me, Joe. I get too distracted by the idea of the naming competition to bring you in. There we are, Joe. So if you've got a question for George, please unmute your sound and come in now. I'm not hearing anything from Joe. So what we'll do, Joe, I'm just going to we'll just leave you there. And if you just as soon as you can, you come in with your microphone. Just start talking quickly to let us know you're there. We'll move on to somebody else. But if you manage to come back in a minute, then we'll bring you in. Let's go instead to well, this is an interesting question. Let's go to Richard, who's got a question about local housing and flooding. So let's see if we're able to answer that one for Richard.
Unmute. Hello.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes, I've sorted it out. It's an
Hello?
external mic. Hello, can you hear me?
So we've got two. Yeah, sorry, Joe. What I'll do, we'll take Richard's question and then we'll go back to you, Joe. Okay, so just hold tight for a second, and Richard, back to you. Sorry.
Thank you very much.
Hi, George.
Hiya.
Over the last few months, when I've been down to the reserve, there's been a very large amount of flooding, especially in the village of Willington. And I noticed that the area that the beavers are going to be living in is quite close to a lot of new housing development that's being built. will there be any impact on that housing, and how would it affect the insurance for people buying those houses?
Yeah, so where we are positioned in regards to the new housing is if you walk from the new housing area down to the reserve, we are a lot lower. So the beavers won't be able to raise the water levels high enough to impact or reach those houses. And like I said earlier, the trouble is with where we are is we're at the end of the Eglinton Brook. What we want to be is at the start of the Eglinton Brook, and that will have an impact on flooding below us because we'll hold the water up for longer. I don't know about the insurance on the houses, but that area is a lot higher than the actual Willington Reserve. And I think with the flooding at Wellington and with the beavers holding water back, not saying yourself, but some people, I think the level of water retention on reserve isn't going to be massive. It could be like up to half a metre or so. I can't tell for certain, but I think people are thinking. Oh, we've got someone else. But I think, yeah, the water retention on the reserve is not going to be like high levels of deep water.
Right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. So we're going to go across back to Joe now.
Hello, Richard. Hello, Kate. I was wondering about inbreeding, because if it's only one family, presumably, you know, after a few years' time, they'll start inbreeding. Do you have a beaver dating service, or
That's great.
cope with that?
Yeah, so beavers are sort of like a pack animal, but they're not, but they are. So what they have is they have the two dominant ones, so they have the male and female adult pair, and then what they have every year when they have the new young, the previous ones will help to look after them. And then what you find is they all live happy together and help to raise the new young, to the point where the area is too small for them, then they'll start to push each other out, or you get conflicts and you get fighting between them. So we won't have any trouble with inbreeding. This area is big enough to have at least 10 beavers there. So for the next, I'd say 5 years or so at least, they're going to be completely fine in that area, and there won't be any inbreeding. And then it'd be nice to use our beavers as a donor source for other reintroduction programs across the UK as well. So we could catch them and send them on somewhere new.
That sounds like a good idea. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Joe. We're going to go across now to Monty. Oh, who's got a excellent mic there. I've just unmuted you for a second. I'll try and bring you back in again. Let's try that again.
Not sure what it's doing there. Yeah. Mute Luke. Okay, how do I do it?
Oh, so let's try that one more time. Can we hear you now, Monty?
Yeah. Which one is it?
Have you got your question?
Hello?
Hi, yeah, we can hear you. Okay, we're going to we'll just pop you on mute. I'll try and come back to you in a second and see if we can pick you up. So we're going to go across to a gentleman called Paul Sands, who has a question about funding for the beaver fence. Paul, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we're coming through just great.
Hi guys. Hi George. Hi Kate. Nice to see you. No, I just wondered, I'm sorry I missed the beginning of the talk. I had some technical issues, and I wondered whether, if funding was now adequate for the fence, whether the current pandemic restrictions are limiting what you're able to achieve this season. How's that going?
Do you want me to answer that one, George?
I think, yeah, Kate, if you want to answer that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting situation we're all in. We're in a fortunate position that a lot of our funding is secure now. So we will go ahead with this project. Yes, there's going to be delays. That's to be expected. We're fortunate that our contractor that will be doing a lot of the fencing work is actually still allowed to work and still able to work. He works at a family team, so he will still be able to go out and do the work. At the moment, it's not going to delay us hugely, which is great news. We will have to see how the pandemic continues. So,
wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm really excited about this.
Thank you very much, Paul. So what we're going to do... Oh, sorry, Paul, did you have a follow-up there?
No, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. I'm going to try and get back to Monty and see if we can get Monty's question now. Hello, Monty.
Hello, it's actually Eva.
Oh, sorry, Eva.
On Monty's laptop.
Why do they have big flat tails?
So beavers spend a lot of their time in the water, so their tails are really important to help them to swim. They can also use this as a bit of support when they're gnawing on trees and on vegetation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eva. So we're going to go across now to Tony, who's got an interesting technical question. So I'm going to try and bring in Tony. I've hit a hitch here. So I've got two Tonys in here. So let's see if we've got the right one. Tony, are you here with a question about chips? We've hit some technical fun. Okay, we'll leave Tony there for the time being and see if instead we can bring up George, India and Noah, who've got a question about dogs. So George, India and Noah, are you there?
Hello.
Hi, we can hear you loud and clear.
So my question was, will dogs attack beavers since they're near a new housing zone?
Yeah, so what we've got is we've got a beaver-proof fence, which will stop anything else from getting, well, not anything else at all. It'll let all the birds and inverts and mammals through, but it will stop dogs going into the area. So I did do a bit of reading about this, and there's been one instance of a dog getting too close to a beaver, and the beaver bit his nose to scare him off. But I think it all depends on what dog you've got and how friendly it is as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll try going back to Tony now and see if he's available. Tony, are you there? Okay, that's a shame. So Tony, if you're still around and you're having some trouble getting through, see if you can reach me by reposting your question in the Q&A, and we'll try and come back to you. So we're going to go on to our next question, which is Deborah.
Hi, hope you can hear me. I was just wondering what the relationship is between the beaver and mink, American mink.
So beavers won't have directly an impact on the mink, but if they're encouraging the otter back into the area, otters have been shown to push mink out of the area. So what we can hope for is with the improvement in the habitat, it'll bring the otters in, which then will in turn push the mink out.
Sure, great.
That's great. Thank you very much, Deborah. So we're actually running now. We're just a couple of minutes over our allotted time. I'm sure you've all got, or many of you have got other things to go on to, or maybe if you're like us and in lockdown, you're probably quite grateful to have something to sit in front of. But what we'll do is we will take two more questions and then we'll wrap up. But of course, there will be the opportunity to carry on talking to us about this topic. There is content on our website, and indeed you've got emails addresses as part of signing up that you can send to. But let's get two more questions in. Let's go. Oh, I've lost the name. I had a good question here from Matt. So I'm going to try and bring in Matt. I've got more than one Matt here, so let's see how that works on for this one. Yeah, no, I think I've got just the one Matt here. So Matt's got a question about infrastructure. So let's bring you in, Matt. And Matt, I think you're having some audio problems. So what I'll do, same as we've done with a couple of other people, we'll just kind of leave you on the side there and look to bring you out back in a minute. And instead, what we're going to do is let's go for our closing question to Andy Carter. Okay, and what a great surname you've got there, sharing that with mine. So let's bring you in, Andy.
Hello.
Hi, Andy.
Hello. Sorry, I'm just laughing at my son. He's run off. Will the beavers actually make it to the River Trent?
I think Kate would like to answer some questions, wouldn't you, Kate?
Well, to start off with, they won't make it to the River Trent because they'll be fenced into the nature reserve. We have got to keep them fenced in. That's part of the deal. As George said, they're not a native species yet, and Natural England are asking us they have to stay in their enclosure. Within 5 years, Natural England are indicating that they are happy for enclosures to be removed and beavers to move. At that point, it's going to be up to the beavers where they go. They may like the Trent, they may prefer some of the quieter backwaters. What we're hoping is, of course, they will spread upstream and up the catchments where they can actually have more of an impact in controlling the water that ultimately gets to the River Trent.
Right. Oh, that sounds good. Another one though, obviously you're going to put a visitors centre in and things like that. Obviously that land does flood on the triangle where the entrance will be. What's going to be done about that? Because obviously potentially that's going to push the flooding further upstream.
Yeah, well, we obviously have a lot of knowledge about managing wet sites and floodplains. It's going to take some lateral thinking. It's going to take some ingenuity to find solutions where we can have a visitor centre that is flood friendly and obviously has no negative impacts on the flooding in the area. It's not inconceivable that we can have buildings that are put on stilts. We can actually still have an area that can absorb water but still have a building on top of it. So it's something that we will tackle, we're looking into, but I'm quite confident that we will find a solution.
Is it what, obviously,
I'm sorry, Andy, I'm really grateful for your question so far. We're just going to move on. We've only got a couple minutes left. I just want to give someone else a chance to ask one as well. So thank you very much. I've got, I'd like to take one last question in. We will try Matt again. Actually, sorry, Matt, have you managed to sort out your microphone issues? No, sounds not. So what we'll do is we'll have our last question is from Chrissy Lemon.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Well, I just wanted to know, why do chipmunks have? Beavers have two really big front teeth in their mouth.
Is it going, Kate? Or do you want me to go? So beavers eat a lot of hard vegetation such as tree bark. So they've got big teeth and they're coated with iron to make them orange. So they're big and strong so that they can gnaw away at the bark. They also fell trees. So when they fell the trees, which means they chop them down with their teeth, some trees are really big. So the teeth need to be strong and big to get through that wood, which is why they're so big.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chrissy. Well, what a great session, really great questions. I'm sorry that we've overrun. I hope that everybody has learned as much as I have and had an enjoyable time. Please do contribute.
Oh, Ben, I can't hear you. I don't know if anyone else can.
Oh no, I think we've managed to lose Ben's audio.
I've cut out, isn't that terrible?
You're
As I said, we are very nearly at our target, but please do contribute on the crowdfunding page to help us to have that beaver-proof fence, which is just phase one of the changes that we're making at Willington. And of course, you can also get your beaver adoption pack with your cute beaver teddy and all the other goodies that are inside there. If you've got any further questions, then you can contact us at inquiries@DerbyshireWT.co.uk, and that's it. So without further ado, we will all say a big goodbye, and thank you very much for joining us. Bye.
Bye, thank you.
I'm pleased to hear from Monty that was your best homeschool session yet. Look out for more. We will definitely try and do more sessions like this if it has proved popular. I want to do a shout out to Megan and what else have we got going on? A big thank you to the Hodgson family. Thanks very much. Yeah, so lots of really nice feedback from everybody. So thank you very much indeed. One thing that we didn't talk about there is that there's a Beaver activity sheet. I think it's been dropped as a onto the into the chat a couple of times, but you can also find it on our website. So if you'd like to go onto the website, you can download an activity there about building beaver dams and seeing what the impact that has on water flow. A really good activity for children and young people to learn a little bit more about the impact that beavers are likely to have on the Willington Nature Reserve. A question there, how many people joined? I think at our peak we were at about 220, 230, which is we're very happy with. So we're not quite at Joe Wicks levels yet, but we will try that. 220, there we are. So yeah. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to end the session now. Really, really grateful to everyone for taking part. Goodbye.